So it's March the 3rd, 2021, in Zone 2A, which I thought was Zone 2B. 2A is the zone we're in up here in just north of Manning, Alberta, Canada. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Christy, and I am starting seeds for cold climate living. Basically, this year I'm starting with some of the seeds that I worked with last year. Last year I had two varieties that I grew. One was a determinate and one was an indeterminate variety. The determinate variety that I grew that I really, really liked and I had a lot of success with up here in the north was the Beaver Lodge Slicer. Now, I could not get these tomatoes. I didn't save any of my seeds last year and I should have, but I couldn't get any of these tomatoes from the original supplier because they sold out and apparently they were a really big hit. I grew these determinate, so they're like a bush variety, because they are a nice tomato. They're a slicer, and they produce like incredibly well. And it's like for canning, they're great because you get one big harvest off of them. Like it doesn't take forever for them to produce. They just produce like nothing. And then all of a sudden, boom, you have like a massive abundant tomato harvest of really decent sized tomatoes. I use these and the other variety as well. I mixed them together, but I use these a lot in my preserving, my pasta sauce and salsa. And I just did stewed tomatoes and canned a bunch of things and froze them. They really worked well. I really like this variety a lot. So no doubt I couldn't buy any in Canada. I had to actually source them from the United States, which I ordered these last year. So if you're looking for this variety of tomatoes, you're not going to get them. And if you do, please let me know where you've got them because I'd like to order some more so I have them on hand in case I need to start another round if it's early enough, or save them for next year as well because they're a really good seed. They were bred in Beaver Lodge, Alberta. This variety is a hybrid variety, and it was bred for cold climate in Beaver Lodge, Alberta. So I'm just a stone throw away from Beaver Lodge, basically, and well, not really. It's like a 3.5 hour drive. Hi, Jenna, if you're watching, my friend Jenna lives there, but I really like that it's been specifically grown here for our climate. And so that's why I decided to go with the Beaver Lodge Slicer. I started these really early. I had them both planted in the greenhouse, in the garden, in boxes. I had them in containers and raised beds. Like I had them in like troughs, like the round wash tubs with other varieties of food, just mulched them up, and I hardly ever had to water them, and they just produced and produced. I had to stake them up because they were just so heavy with tomatoes, and it was just every day there was like a bowl full of tomatoes from these plants. So they are really great tomatoes. I like them a lot. If I had a choice between the Beaver Lodge and the Early Girl tomatoes, which are the indeterminates, I would hands down choose to grow the Beaver Lodge tomatoes over the Early Girls. The Beaver Lodge tomatoes, from what I recall, were the Early Girl produced tomatoes and flowered first, but they didn't have edible flowers or edible fruit until after I already harvested off of the Beaver Lodge. So sure, the Early Girl is quite early, but for where I'm located in the greenhouse and outside in the ground, in my garden, in containers, the Beaver Lodge tomato well outperformed the Early Girl. And also I didn't have to provide trellises for them to grow up. They're just a bush variety. I staked them up. That's about it. I bet you could grow these easily from hanging baskets. They would do fantastic as long as they were mulched and then kept semi-moist. The more you, I found with the I found with the Beaver Lodge tomatoes, they are tomatoey. They have a really nice flavor. The early girls, they were not my favorite last year, but I did grow them again because they're an early variety. And for when I mix them in with canning, it doesn't really matter anyways. I know that they do well for me, the early girls. So that's the other variety I'm doing. Just these ones. I usually get these. I think I got the West Coast seed type last year as well, and they did really great. I got them a couple of years ago, and I don't know where the original packaging, and they just sent these because I mean, it was 2020, right? So we had a lot of crazy things going on. So those are the two main varieties. The indeterminate ones are the ones that I'm going to put on like an arch. I'm going to try growing them in different containers and stuff. The early girls, I only grew the early girls inside not containers. I only grew early girls in the ground in my garden, or I grew them I had the early girls in my greenhouse, in the raised beds inside my greenhouse. And they didn't really do the greatest. I had a lot of pollination issues with blossom end rot, but they had lots of issues, but the Beaver Lodge had none. I had no blossom end rot on my Beaver Lodge, but I had a pile of blossom end rot on the early girls. So the early girls, I need to give them another shot this year. I probably won't grow them again. If I have as much trouble, I'll just stick with the Beaver Lodge and eliminate the hassle of the early girls because they give me more production anyway, but I'm giving them a go. They're favorite up here by the community. Lots of people grow them here where I'm located in Zone 2 and Zone 3 because we're kind of on the bridge of that, or the edge of that. So lots of people swear by this variety, but I just like the Beaver Lodge a little bit better. So I'm going to remember to keep my seeds and try not to get any cross-pollination between them and the early girls. So this was something I'm really interested in. The yellow Tennessee yellow cherry tomato was very interesting for me because it came as a surprise. Actually, I didn't order this. Actually, this company, Tomato Fest in the States, they actually sent me this as a freebie. I think there's a note on the back. So as a bonus for your garden, tomato blessings. And they signed it, which is really, really sweet. And I'm really excited to try these. I'm going to start these cherry tomatoes today. I'm not typical on cherry tomatoes because my family doesn't like them, but I will probably dehydrate them and then use them for like pizza and stuff like that, where I could put them in oil and reconstitute them with oil or like olive oil or whatnot and use them for cooking and baking, where I would use sun-dried tomatoes. And I will eat them when I'm gardening. I'm the only one that likes tomatoes in my household, so I will snack on them. I used to do that with when I'd have small Beaver Lodge tomatoes. I would like snack on them out there and not eat lunch or supper, just eat tomatoes. So that's that. I'm trying something very new this year as well with these tomatoes. These are called Indigo Rose. Now, Indigo Rose, they say that they're a medium-sized saladette tomato. Start life green like any other, but mature to such a dark purple that they are nearly black. They are highly acidic and balanced perfectly by sweet fruity flavor. They're semi-determinate, so I think I have to give them some support. And they're supposed to be an 80-day tomato. I've been called to really grow a lot of the purpley things this year, and so this is really interesting. I'm curious to how this will look. I will give you an update as they grow, but I'm really interested to see how these cherry tomatoes turn out here. And if you've ever grown black tomatoes or black cherry tomatoes, what do you think of them? And would you grow them again? That's my question for you. So I'm excited to get these started. I also am planting some more peppers. These are habanero peppers, red habaneros, and I did plant some other varieties of peppers. I will show you what I planted. So for the peppers, I planted my peppers on February 22nd, and they're just starting to germinate. Now, one of the ones that I'm really excited to try is called a candy cane pepper. This is a red candy cane pepper. It's a hybrid. And it's a 65-day pepper. So from the time I transplant it out into the garden or into the ground, it'll take 65 days to mature. They claim that it'll harvest. You can harvest on it depending on your climate, but they say it'll go from July into October. And so I'm really excited about this because it's very sweet at the green stage, and when they ripen to a stripe, like they have a stripe appearance, and then they turn red, so they kind of look like a candy cane. But the sweetness definitely becomes the feature when the pods are fully ripe. So the full sweetness is full red. Pepper is when it's the best. They're a very thin wall, and they grow about 4 inches long. The peppers do, and about 1.5 inches wide. So they're a really nice sized pepper. And I like the idea of growing these because you can grow them in containers or pepper beds. So, where you group them. I like how they have a very high productivity. In all the trials that they did in the field trials, they outperformed a lot of the other peppers. So I'm looking forward to have this as a nice pepper that I can chop up and process. Like, I would like to be able to freeze dry these as chopped up peppers that I could add to omelets or in cooking, or like if I'm making fajitas, I can just grab them, reconstitute them, and away we go. So I have fresh produce throughout the entire year. Or freeze them. So that's kind of my goal there. I also grew, I planted on the 22nd of February. My seedlings, I started them for Jalapeno M is the name of the pepper, which is a jalapeno. It's a medium heat jalapeno, and it is a thick wall pepper. Now, they are the dark green variety, and they grow about 3 inches long and about 1 inch wide, which like they're kind of the blunt on one end kind of pepper. And they typically will go 70 days from planting in the ground. So I have started these really early. Some of them are going into my greenhouse, but they are open pollinated seeds. Kind of typical peppers, but the open pollinated 70-day maturity, I like this variety for that reason. So they're great for patios, that you can do them in containers, those kind of things, but they're hot. So these will be used in my salsas and the cowboy candy kind of thing. I'm planning to can some of that this year. Making some spicy jalapeno poppers, those kind of things for fresh eating throughout the summer. Or into the fall, because these will be we'll have these later. I'm hoping to have some early if I can get them in the greenhouse soon enough and plant it in there. But my goal for these is to make pepper pots, so I have like containers that I can move in and out when we have good weather, and keep them growing really, really consistently. So that's my goal for these. And they will ripen to red. So any type of pepper is going to ripen to red basically, but these ones, or purple, but these ones are good for the pickling and the salsas or fresh eating. They have a 5,000 SHUs, or they're about the 2,000 to 5,000 SHUs, which is kind of hot. So we'll see how they do. I like the idea of doing smoked jalapenos for chipotle. So we have a smoker. I'm gonna probably pop some in the smoker and do them when they're fully mature into full ripeness. I'm hoping that I will be able to smoke some of them. I started some California Wonders. I grew these last year and I really enjoyed them. I had grown some from seed that I started a little later than I probably should have. And they were just a little slow. Like, they were just getting going. They started turning color right when we started getting our first frost, just because I was late getting them started and I was late putting them out in the garden. But I did have some success with them and I really like them. They're a very heavy, smooth skin pepper. They're basically the regular pepper that you would buy in the store or at a farmer's market. They are 65 to 70 day maturity from the time they're planted outside. So, I mean, I waited too long, but I did get some amazing food out of them. I made roasted pepper sauce with my tomatoes. I actually put like these peppers, I cut them up with some of my other spicy peppers, put onions and tomatoes, some of the Beaver Lodge tomatoes, and even some of the early girls, sliced them all up, put them on baking sheets and roasted them. And then I made like a tomato sauce out of that for, grabbing out of the freezer and putting it on pasta in the quick cooker or whatnot, or the Instapot or the slow cooker, and just made a beautiful, really nice sauce. I love these peppers. They're just kind of a go-to because they never fail you, and they're great. They're a great size for making stuffed peppers, which I don't do. It's on my list of things to do, but I like them for that reason. They start out a light green and then they turn dark green, but with enough of, when you get lots of heat, they turn red. Or they'll turn like a brownie color and then they turn red with the variety I had. So they really like a fertile soil, and we had that in abundance last year because we did a lot of compost. We filled our boxes with lots of compost, and so they just thrived in that. And for me, they did amazing. I found they did the best in containers, and I didn't have a lot of luck with them in the greenhouse simply because of pollination. The pollinators all went for the early or the Beaver Lodge tomatoes, and they seemed to leave my peppers alone, or they went for the wax peppers instead, which I'll tell you about those in a minute. But the wonders, they didn't really pollinate overly. The ones that I had outside were definitely a success, especially when I had the pot beside the greenhouse door. The bees were just all over it all the time, so we had a good pollination there. So that's really about it for this pepper. It's definitely something that I will always grow because it gives you a lot of volume of food, and you can use them. They freeze well as well. So these ones, I love them. I will never go a summer without growing these peppers. I grew them last year. Oh my goodness, I love them. They were massive producers. There was just so many peppers. I had peppers at the wazoo when it comes to these things, and they are so good. I love them in salsa. They're just the right heat for us because I tend to, I go through phases where I like it and then I don't. The other thing that I love making with these is I made hot sauce, and it was so good. I combined it with some of the cayenne peppers and the pachu peppers. Not a lot, but a little bit of those, and it turned out great to make hot sauce. I never fermented any hot sauce, but I did do the cooked version, and it would last a couple days in our house. It was just flying out of here. Everyone was eating it in very large doses. So, I will always grow these peppers. They are cool weather peppers. They do well in cooler conditions or cooler summer weather. So that's why they did so well for me up here. I definitely recommend, if you do grow Hungarian hot wax peppers, start them very early and get them planted as early as you can. Don't hesitate. Even if it is cool and you have them in containers, just cover the containers. Not cool where you're going to have a frost, but if the nights dip down to under between 1 and 5 degrees, just cover them up. They'll be fine. Don't worry about getting too concerned because they're really hardy. I found they were really hardy. They have a very smooth fruit. It's waxy and bright yellow. And they have a really weird green color, and then they just turn yellow, and it's just almost overnight. So they're very interesting to grow. It's hard to kind of watch them. You're like, are they ready? Are they not ready? I've used some green ones before too, and they were good, but definitely wait till they're fully ripe and mature before picking them, because then you get really big. They're large peppers. They're long. They are about 5 inches long. So that's a big pepper. The plant themselves, they get 24 inches in height. They didn't really bush out too far, so they grew up, and because the peppers go straight up. And so I could fit a lot of them. I grew a lot of these in my greenhouse, and they did really well in there. So definitely something to consider. It's relatively mild. It has a 5,000 to 10,000 SHUs. And the Hungarian wax pepper is the best for pickling, sliced or whole. So for making spicy pepper rings, try these ones. They're really good. I'm planning to do that with these ones. Just making my regular pickled pepper rings that you would put on a sandwich or whatever. That's what I'm going to do. But they are hot. They do have some heat. They do the best in cool conditions, like cooler summer. So zone 2, zone 3, these are your peppers. Don't even, if you have a hard time growing jalapenos, try these ones. You won't be disappointed. They do have some heat, and I think they would work really good for jalapeno poppers, just using Hungarian hot wax poppers instead. They won't be green, they'll be yellow, but I think that they would make a very nice pepper. Sometimes some of them, I noticed they had a sweet and spicy, and some of them were just freaking hot. So it just depends, I guess. The maturity is, they mature in 58 to 85 days. So they just keep producing, I found, and I had really good luck with them. So my earliest pepper was about probably 63, 4 days-ish in there, I think was what I figured when I planted them. That's how long it took for me to actually get a ripe pepper that I picked off. I used it in a salad, and I made all the men in my house cry. So we're not sure if it was just the first pepper was really hot or what, but it had some bite. So it was good. I really like this pepper a lot. Now this pepper is called a Hungarian cheese blend, and I'm really excited about this one because it's a mini. Now I love the idea of having a mini bell pepper because when it's just Tyson and I here and Chaz isn't around, like if Chaz is at his mom's, and I go and harvest a pepper and I chop it up for a salad, one large bell pepper is just a little bit too much for us to have fresh. So I like to have a small one that between the two of us, we're going to consume it. We're not going to have extra and stuff like that, right? So, I really like having this, and also for making like mini stuffed peppers. I like that idea. I don't like the idea of having these great big bell peppers and stuffing them full of lots of things. Like I like having the smaller container of mini treats of foods like this. So that's where my reasoning for buying this pepper and trying this pepper. It is very high yielding. According to West Coast Seeds, they say that it is extremely early, and it has a picture perfect mini bell pepper maturing into red, orange, and yellow. So they are named after the heirloom pumpkin because of the shape is so similar, which is really interesting. See, these peppers, the peppers on these are about 24 inches tall plants, and they are flattened and fluted with thick walls. So the sweet bell pepper themselves, they have really adapted well to being grown in containers and planters. So this is good for someone who's in town. And I'm planning to do these in planters and containers as well, or in raised beds. So I'm really looking forward to that. Not a lot of my peppers are going to be going into the garden. I'm putting most of my peppers into raised beds or containers. So this is going to be a great one to try in there. They according to the website, they say that these peppers belong in every gourmet garden, and I could see why, because they're so sweet. They're so they're just this compact little gift of pepperness, peppery, sweet pepperness. So I'm really enjoying that. And the colors are beautiful. They bring a lot of color and vibrancy to the garden as well. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. So they mature to red, orange, and yellow. They are good for containers, and they are hybrid seeds. So they're not like a heirloom or anything like that. And the maturity on these is 65 to 68 days, which is something you definitely want. So I planted these on the 22nd. And I'm probably going to put them out in my garden. I'll probably plant them into their containers maybe the second or third week in May. They'll be in the greenhouse in the containers, and then I will put them out as the weather permits. So I'm hoping as soon as they're planted, then we can start the clock. And we'll, as soon as we get some warm weather, we'll have some pollinators, or I can hand pollinate while they're inside the greenhouse. So that's my goal, is to have some early peppers that are bell peppers. And I can also easily freeze dry or freeze these as they're coming out and have a really good supply. I hear that they keep well as well. So that's something that they'll keep in the fridge for a few days as well, to stock up if you're making little batches of salsa or sauces or whatever. So that's my thing about that. I'm really excited to try those. The Purple Beauty. Now, I have not grown this before, and I know lots of people have, and I feel so left out, so I want to try them. I don't know if they've been grown a lot up in our area, but I definitely wanted to give it a go. So these are the purple peppers. They start out green, and they turn to purple and then to a deep red. So they can actually sometimes even look black. But they're a 70 to 75 day maturity pepper. They're a sweet pepper, like a bell pepper. And the fruits, they start from midsummer, and they get really meaty, 3 to 4 lobed green bell peppers. And then before they mature to that astonishing bright purple color, they they flush up and produce big fruits. And I'm really looking forward to trying that. The flavors are these. I'm told that they are remarkable fruits for having a sweet and mild and a little bit of like a succulent, crispy, kind of like a fine crispy texture. They're very delicate, just a little slightly different than the regular average pepper. So I'm really interested to know what these are going to be like. And they're just pretty. They're just nice to have as a mix with those California Wonders and then the Hungarian cheese peppers. I just thought it would be like a colorful display in the garden, to see these growing. So I'm really looking forward to that. What they're going to be like. So again, these are open pollinated. They're 70 to 75 day peppers, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they are like. I don't know if you've ever grown these before. Let me know if you have any tips. Between these and the tomato seeds, we have some really interesting colors. You should see the other seeds that I have that are purple, that I'm kind of going on this purple craze this year. So I got all the stuff planted that I said I was going to, and I have extra space. I have 2 rows of cells that are still open. So I'm going to start some seeds that I'm going to have in my greenhouse for cold weather growing. I should tell you, for the tomatoes and peppers and stuff like that, I always put multiple seeds because they germinate, and then I pop them out and I put them into bigger pots, so then they grow up, because I'm always potting up. Then I have really good strong plants. Every time I do that, I eliminate anything that's sick or wilty or weak. And so by the end of the starting season, when I go to put them in my garden and grow, I have good, strong, healthy plants with good immune systems. So that's why I do it that way. A lot of people do it other ways. That works for me. So I have multi-seeds sowed in each cell, which is more space efficient. Plus, I get to, cherry pick which plants I want to move forward with. So I'm going to show what else I'm starting. These are going to go into my raised beds, into my boxes, once they have matured enough and it's warmed up enough. So what I typically do is I put starts in my raised beds, and then I put a tote, like a clear tote, over top. So I make a greenhouse inside of a greenhouse, and this stuff is fine even when it's 20 below. It doesn't really affect it too much. If I am concerned, I just put a blanket over it, but it'd be fine in there. This is winter hardy, or cold climate hardy stuff. So this stuff I'm starting today with the intention, within a couple weeks to 3 to 4 weeks, I'm planning to put it in my greenhouse. So the kohlrabi, I'm going to plant a couple of each, just have a variety so we can have some kohlrabi growing in the greenhouse before we get any cabbage moths. I'm going to start some kale and just do a couple things for fresh eating and smoothies. And I'm going to do some spinach as well. I already started some lettuce, and I'll probably start a few more just because. And then I will have nice green salads starting in March. You know, I'll be able to have greens since I have lots of onions to trim, onion tops. So, oh, the birdies are having a hissy fit over there. So yeah, I'm just gonna plant those up and then it can go under the light. I should also show you, I split a label so that I wasn't getting overcrowded. If you're doing this method, that's how I number, and then I put the tags, so cell number 9, cell number 10. Normally I wouldn't put tomatoes and peppers in the same cell blocks, but these will be popped out and those will be fine. They might not germinate by the time these are, yeah, they should germinate by the time these are ready to come out. Like, I hope so. So with the kohlrabis that I'm starting, I want to have fresh kohlrabi. I want to have vegetables in May. So I want to start eating out of my garden in the month of May, if not sooner. So with the lettuce and stuff, I'll be able to be harvesting lettuce out of the greenhouse in April, which, I mean, if you don't have a greenhouse, I highly recommend considering making even like a hoop house where you could plant cold weather tolerant plants inside the hoop house. And what I would recommend doing is at night or when it's cooler days, just put a clear tote over top to make a greenhouse inside of a greenhouse. And these winter hardy plants, like these are brassicas. I have a hard time growing brassica species during the spring or summer months because of the cabbage moth. So I want to get these growing before, so I can have a good harvest off of them before we get those stupid moths and they eat my crops. So that's what I'm doing. These take 7 to 10 days to germinate. And so I can pop these right out easy. I'm going to put them on the end over here so I can pop them out easily and pot them up without disturbing the peppers. And just go from there. I think they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Within 2 months, they take 55, I think, days, they say on here. Yeah, 8 weeks. Mature crop in 8 weeks. So, yeah, 50 days to maturity. So I'm not going to plant the whole pack, just a few. And that should give us some fresh eating for early spring up here in northern Alberta, Zone 2. So I'm just going to show you what I meant by planting like multi-cell or planting multi-seeds per cell. I know it's pretty self-explanatory, but some people are new at this, so I just wanted to share how I do it. I just drop several seeds. It's hard to see these guys because they're dark in color against the dirt, but I've put 5 seeds in there. And I'm going to do 5 in here. I don't need a lot. I'm actually, oh, I just lost one. Rogue seed, where'd it go? I'm actually going to do, yeah, that's enough. So I have this color is the purple one. So I have 6 seeds in each, or 5 seeds in each cell. So I have 10 of these. And of the purple kohlrabi. Now I'm going to do some of the white kohlrabi in the next couple cells. So ideally, like, I wanted to do them on the end because they will be the first ones to kind of pop out. The spinach will be soon to pop out too, but I could kind of just keep trimming it so I don't disturb anything else. I typically wouldn't plant this stuff next to peppers because peppers have a long germination rate and these ones do not. They germinate quite fast compared to the peppers, but I want to fill these cells and I want to get some food started for my family. So that's what we're doing. So I got 5. I think I got 6 in there of the white ones. So these are the white kohlrabi, Conan. Now, I haven't grown this variety before. I grew, I think it was the Kohlrabi, Kohlrabi, or whatever they call it. It's this brand, Kohlrabi. Say that fast 10 times. That's a tongue twister. I grew these last year, and my garden pest completely destroyed it. So the chickens ended up having a tasty treat. So I have those two, so there's 2 cells of those planted up. Then I have these 2 cells open. So now I got to figure out what to put in there. So I think I'm going to do kale. And this is just summer kale blend. And this is also a favorite of the cabbage moth. So I have not successfully grown kale here. Between the grasshoppers and the cabbage moths, it's been impossible. So I'm going to put a whole bunch in here because I'm just going to pull them out when they germinate and pot them up. A person doesn't need a lot of space to do this. And I put a generous amount in there. I don't know how many seeds. I'm not a fan of kale, but it's healthy and I know we're supposed to have it. Now spinach, I'm going to do half spinach and then I'm going to do half lettuce. Same thing, because these are all going to be potted up. Now the spinach, I'm gonna plant these quite heavily in here. Like lots of seeds per cell. Now this is a method, not all gardeners do this, but I know, I'm gonna do, that's enough. I know there is several gardeners that like this method because it uses less space. And you know, it is a little bit of work because you do have to, you know, you have to finesse with them, right? You have to tend to them and stuff like that, and whatnot. But it's just, I find it's easier this way. So what happens when these are all sprouted and these are still just starting to germinate, I'll just come in and I'll take like a butter knife probably, and I'll just put the butter knife down in once these are all grown, like they'll be bigger already. They'll have their true first set of true leaves on, and then I will come in and I'll pop them out. And I can either refill this while these are still growing in here, or I could just leave them open. So it's kind of like succession planting, but you're using bigger trays. And so it's just, you gotta be careful. I like these trays because I can fit a lot of food in a small area. So that's beneficial for me since I don't have like a growing place to grow a lot of seeds. So it works for me doing succession planting in that way. So I decided to go with a romaine lettuce because this stuff is a good variety for baby greens, for like harvesting as young unmatured heads of lettuce. With romaine, it gets those beautiful, nice bunches. But I really like baby greens, and so does our family. So we snack on that a lot. A lot of the times in the spring, we're so busy with lots of chores and things, getting the yard cleaned up. It's nice to just go pick nice baby greens and have some, barbecue something quick, and that's a nice easy supper. But these are nice greens. So the Paris Island Costs is what they're called, and so they're a heirloom, and can be planted in tighter spacing. So I'm planning to put these, square foot, plant them in my garden boxes in my greenhouse. So that is going to be very ideal because it's very compact where I'm planning to put these this year while I'm getting all the other stuff growing. So I'm just going to do those 3 cells. I was going to say also, a person doesn't have to come in while these are germinating. What I would do is take a knife. If you're in that situation where you're planting in big cell blocks like this, you could just take probably a sharper knife than this one. This is just a demonstration, but then you would cut in a straight line, not like it's been drunk. You would cut that out for your other stuff, like anything that was ready to plant out, you would just cut it out because it'll go back together, right? Like it's not a big deal. And then it's easier to pot up and then put it back if you need to, stuff like that. So we're just germinating. I'm just germinating in this cell block. That's it. Like I shouldn't call it a cell block because it's not really a cell block, but I'm using it as a cell block. And so that's what I'm doing. That's how I'm finding it's working for me. But Again, I don't have a lot of space, but you might. So that's my hack on what to do for this kind of germination method. Oh, these are so fine, such tiny little seeds, but they're not that bad to see actually. I thought they'd be worse. They're good. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3. I always have to remember. I'm planting these quite heavy in here because again, I want to make sure we have good germination. And I would like to plant a couple rows. Like that'll put, those 2 little cells will put a couple rows in my greenhouse. Easy, easy, easy. A couple of really tightly packed rows. Once I show you how I pot up these plants, it'll make a lot more sense. So, and yeah, I made my label. I messed up a few times, but make sure to label it as you go. That's what I do so I don't mess it up. Or I go back and watch the video 3 times to remember what exactly I did. And there it is. I just have to cover it with dirt, water it in, and it can go under the light. So that it's ready to go. One of the things that's important to remember is that there is no nutritional value in this soil. So once the seeds start coming up, especially when you start germinating peppers, once they get their leaves start to come in, with seedlings, it's really important to fertilize them. I typically don't fertilize them until I've potted them up, but that's my preference. Other people do fertilize them once they've started germinating, because there really is no nutritional value in this. Like there's no nutrients in this soil. It's just a sterile soil for starting seeds. So if you're using this opposed to compost, you might want to look into seedling fertilizers or things that might benefit you to have a good start to your seedlings, especially in cold climate. You want them to have a good start. You want good, healthy plants, like really, really healthy. That's why I do all the up potting, because the more you kind of eliminate the weak ones by doing that, the better success you're going to have in with hardier plants in a season like this. So that's how it is. How I find it is anyway. So exciting today. My peppers decided to pop up and I have some sprouting. Let's see what varieties we have coming up. These were planted on the 22nd of February. All of them were. And so the first 2 rows, we have Hungarian hot wax pepper. Today's the 3rd, by the way, or the 4th, 3rd. Today's the 3rd of March. Nothing there yet. Oops, little technical issues. This 3rd cell, in the 3rd cell, number 3, 4 and 5, we have medium hot jalapenos, which were also planted on the 22nd. So those popped up. We have some germination. So that's interesting. The purple beauty bell pepper. The purple beauty bell pepper, we have cell 6, 7, and 8. We have some popped up there for 6, 7, and 8. So that's exciting. And we have California Wonder. They haven't popped up yet. And then we have Hungarian cheese blend bell pepper and the red candy cane pepper, which is another sweet pepper, and they haven't popped yet. Oh, I see a candy cane. Right. Yay! They've all germinated. So that's super exciting. The peppers are up. And let's check on our seedlings that we planted on the 21st for, we planted onions. Now these are the red rosa onions, and they're doing very well. They are still, some are still germinating. And the ones in the back are the Patterson onions, and they're doing very well too. So I'm pretty excited for that. I'm gonna pop off or keep off the top on these peppers, I think, for a little bit, and then I'll put it back on just to kind of get some airflow, and we'll see how that goes. I know that our melons probably have not sprouted yet, simply because we just planted them day before yesterday, but definitely nice and moist in there. So that's exciting. We'll have peppers.